Has everyone been able to access that folder? If not, I can write it down for you, because a lot of the content, some of the things we're going to be working with today are living in that folder. So the folder should be as follows. It's https://bit.ly/regent resources. My writing is terrible, so just to read that out to you. So it's an HTTPS folder, which means it's a safe folder, safe address. And then it's https://bit.ly/regent resources. And that should then open a folder. Is everybody able to get to that? Okay, so that's the first resource we're going to be using today in one way and another. And the second question I wanted to ask is whether everyone has access to Excel. Does everyone have access to Excel? Okay. Now, in that folder I've just shared with you is the Learner Guide, the Data Analytics Learner Guide. So you can open that and keep it on your desktop if you want to. And that is the I think Marlene will be sending it to you, or she's sending it to you now, but you have got it in that folder. So on your desktop you should have that folder with a whole lot of content in, and within that folder you should have the Data Analytics Learner Guide. Is that working for everybody? Just make sure everyone's on the same page. Okay, has everyone managed to get into that folder? Because we need to access that Excel file later and put it into Excel, and there are other things that I want to refer to in that folder. So it would be good if you are all on the same page. Okay, we winning? My writing is terrible, so it's just to repeat, it's https://bit.ly/ and then regent resources, all lowercase, all one word. And that should take you to a folder with a number of files in it. And it's important that you all have access to it, otherwise we're going to not be on the same page. Morning, Faisal. Welcome. Okay, are we on the same page? So the first thing I'd like to... Yes, no? We're all comfortable, are we? The first thing I'd like to share with you is some historic material or access. So I'm going to open a folder, hopefully, somewhere here. Where are we? That Word folder, where has that gone to, Spor? I did open a Word folder somewhere here. Let's go in here again. Okay, so this one's called Some Useful Links. Okay, so I'm just going to take you through these. All of you should be able to open this document. It's a Word document, and it's got several links in there that I thought could be helpful both during and after the workshop. Yes, no? If you're not with me, colleagues, please let me know. Otherwise, I don't want to lose anyone this early in the day. Okay, so I'm assuming everyone's with me. If you open this first one, it's a link to the Southern New Hampshire University. And before you get into panic mode, this is open source material. Natalie, who's part of our team, who hasn't been able to help as much as she would normally because she's been in intensive care, she's studying with them at the moment. So you can go to this website, it's in the public domain, and it covers things we looked at yesterday. So it's just a backup for yesterday. It talks about keyword searching, it tells you when to use keyword searches, and in general, it's a very useful resource. It talks about subject searching, Boolean operator searching, and a whole lot of other things that relate back to our research tools on Monday. Okay, so it's just a backup really to the course, the learner guide. Then there's another folder of theirs, which basically is somewhere here. Just help me close this down. So if you go to that one, this one here is more specifically focused around evaluating resources, or sources rather. So this one you can go to and it'll help you to find sources of one sort and another. Welcome to the sources guide, citing your sources, academic support, don't worry about the library and so on, because that's you're not going to have access to, but you will have access to things like Introduction to Evaluating Sources, and it has FAQs and all sorts of other things. So even though this is another university, it's really good content, and it talks about what a peer-reviewed journal is. It talks about how do you search for a peer-reviewed journal, what's the difference between a scholarly and peer-reviewed journal. So it's really designed to amplify what we talked about on Monday. Okay, so it's just a backup resource. And then these three that I'm sharing with you now, these are new ones that relate to today. I'm not going to take you through them. They're there for you to look at later. So it's a site with a strange name, KD Nuggets, and they have a guide to data analytic tools. They have a guide to best data modeling tools, and they have a guide to 19 skills you need to know if you are to be a data scientist. So again, we'll just look at one of them, and this one basically will show you a number of tools, some of which we're going to be talking about today. So it talks about Excel, it talks about Python, it talks about R, it talks about SQL, it talks about Jupyter Notebook, Apache Spark, Tableau, SAS, KNIME, Microsoft Power BI, because we're just talking basically today, we're going to just touch on Excel, Tableau, and Microsoft BI. We're not going to go into these other areas, but this will tell you a bit about them and also how to make use of them. Okay, so this is just, again, another resource for you, and it also offers you a free book which you can download with a whole lot of prompts for those of you who are heavily into our friendly software on the internet, on ChatGPT. Okay, so those are just some resources, and we're going to now go into the program for today. And when I get going, from the beginning. Okay. So again, a welcome to today, which is all about data analytics. And I think data analytics is a step up from research tools, because as we'll see, even within Excel, there are some very, very sophisticated tools, and it's not something we're going to learn here today if we don't already know it. But we're going to touch on it, and we're going to, hopefully, technology permitting, we're going to play around with Excel. We're not going to try and play with Tableau or Power BI, but I've given you some source documents on them, where to find them, what to do with them. Tableau is a paid product. Some universities have Tableau as a resource, and we're going to do that front-end check just so that I know what page we're on. So my first question is, how many people here are familiar with using Excel generally? Is everybody familiar with using Excel? How many people here are familiar with using Excel for data analytics purposes? There we are. We've got a resource person. I've marked you. When we get to the crunch, but you can help. Okay, so Kriyanka has used it as a research tool. Anybody here use Tableau? Anybody at all using Tableau? Have you used Tableau? Okay. You'll be happy to know we're not going to use Tableau today. A, because it costs money, and B, because we've got a fairly limited window. We're just going to talk about it. And then Power BI, has anyone used Power BI, which is a Microsoft product? Okay, so that's fine. I was only planning to use Excel, and at a very basic level, because we'll just use it to do some data visualization and use that just to see the power of even a product like Excel. Hopefully, I've just had to switch from my own computer to the house computer, so I'm hoping all the bits still fit together as we proceed. So perhaps just to ask whether there are any questions or comments that anyone would like to make, anything that's a carryover from Monday that anyone would like to raise. I am going to be showing you inevitably some ChatGPT type tools that you can use, because there are now ChatGPT focused tools for data analytics and machine learning and data visualization and all these other fun topics we're going to be talking about today. In a sense, today is going to be a bit more theoretical, but I'm hoping it doesn't become boring. But we will look at using Excel, at least at a basic level. And there will be a case study that you will work on in groups to look at aspects of how you could use the tools at the business school without necessarily locking in on any one tool or another. And then my next question, which I should have asked as well, do you use SPSS at all? Anyone here use SPSS? Shaheen, I've marked you two guys as well, because we're going to ask you to support us when we talk about SPSS. Okay, again, in many universities, it's a tool that's made available to the students. So SPSS is often a tool that's made available at universities, and so is Tableau. But they're both paid products, at least at the serious level. And it just depends upon how much use an institution makes of these kind of tools as to whether it wants to pay for them. Okay, so that's just to give me a bit of a reality check. And I'm going to try and stand so I can see the screen, hopefully without interfering with anyone else. So basically, what is our objective? It's just to equip us with an overview of critical concepts and tools. And I've made the statement there that we are here to enhance your data analytics skills, sharpen the saw. Those of you who read Covey, Covey's Principles of Highly Effective People, his final one is, when you've mastered an art, you have to keep sharpening your saw, because otherwise it falls off the page. And it's the same with many of these tools. If you don't use them for 3 months or 4 months, first of all, there are also always upgrades every 5 minutes. And secondly, you have to almost start again. So it's something that you have to keep practicing, if you like, if you want to make the tool central to your work and to support you in your research and so on. Okay, so we're going to talk about data visualization, and that's where we're going to use a bit of Excel, hopefully, technology permitting. We're going to talk about statistical analysis. We're not necessarily going to do that, but we're just going to make sure we all understand the concepts of central things like median and mode and mean and standard deviations and fun things like that. We're not going to go into null hypotheses and things like that. We're just going to pass them by in a hurry, unless Shaheen or someone like that wants to take us through that. But in any event, we're just going to, many of these tools, you're only going to master if they appeal to you, if you have access to them, and if you make use of them. So it's not something you can learn in 5 minutes. That's the real reality. All I'm hoping to do today is to take you broadly through these and to show you, for example, how to use Excel, which most of us have access to. So we're also going to be talking about machine learning algorithms. We're going to be talking about big data management, and then we're going to do a case study we'll break into small groups somehow and do a case study. I'm not going to tell you all about us again. I told you all about us on Monday, and I will incidentally put, for those of you who want it, I will put this PowerPoint as well as the one from Research Tools into that folder as a PDF file. Okay, but I won't do that today. I'll do it when I get home tomorrow, hopefully. Okay, so we're taking a helicopter view. I just want to make that clear. And this is a helicopter view that I found at unsplash.com. Fun place to look for pictures. I'm not quite sure what it is. It looks quite complicated, but there's lots of forest around and buildings. I'm assuming it's like an industrial park or something. And it's got lots of circular roads and flyovers and fly-unders. And I've just said, we're not trying to see the individual tree, we're trying to see the wood today. Data analytics is a big topic requiring detailed research, learning, and practice to fully apply some of the tools or applications. And today we're going to adopt a largely helicopter view, aiming to get a good knowledge of the key concepts while dipping into some of the tools. Remember that we have some excellent mini videos on ELSA that you can watch that address some of the finer details. Everyone here should have had a series of emails which would have given them access to it would have given you an access to an overview on what ELSA does, which is just a learning management system, but you would also have received a link to 9 mini videos. And I think the quality of those mini videos is fairly good, and they cover some of the concepts we're going to be talking about today in more detail. And again, technology permitting, I'm going to share at least one of those with you to show you some of the information that they provide. So that resource, I just need to talk to Natalie when I get home and make sure you'll be able to access that LMS. Probably I'll ask you to make it for 6 weeks after today, because obviously we have to pay to have people on the LMS, so we don't want passengers. But 6 weeks hopefully will be enough for you to watch those videos if you want to. So that's your call at the end of the day. Okay, so now we're going to do an icebreaker, if we need such a thing. And I want you to give yourself a title. You can use one of these, but I want you to give yourself a title where data is concerned. And we don't want a word like data duffer, which means that you know absolutely nothing about data. We're not looking for data duffers here today. We're looking for data enthusiasts. So the suggestion here is you can be a data detective, you can be a visualizer extraordinaire, you can be a storyteller, you can be using data, you can be a problem solver, you can be a data explorer, and another one which the content developer left off is a data wrangler. You know how you wrangle a horse? When you break a horse in, you call it a horse wrangler. So you can be a data wrangler if you want to. So I'm going to just give you 5 minutes, and then I'm going to go around and start front left and ask you to give yourself a title that relates to data in some way, and then explain it to us in case it's a complicated version of how things are. So 5 minutes, please. Find yourself a title, and what is your data superpower? Yes.
Are we limited to the list there?
No, not at all. No, that was this. This is just put up as a general guide. If you go and get creative and innovative about it, that'll be great. So anything that somehow other references data and your approach to data. And we don't want any data agnostics. We want people We want data lovers or something that speaks about your philosophy or your approach to data. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes from now, which is like...
People online.
Yes.
So also.
Okay. Yeah, how do we bring them in? Because I don't see them.
They are on.
Do I need to... Where's Spore? Okay, where's Spore gone to? So he needs to bring... Because I don't know whether he's brought them on or not. Okay. Okay, colleagues, we're just wrestling also with whether the audience that's out there is on this with us. So we just need to track Spore down just to check on that.
You can maybe just ask them to confirm they can do it.
Okay, but where are we going to see them? Oh, over here. Oh, we can hear. Spore, the online audience, do we know whether they're in touch with us? Colleagues, are you able to hear us remotely?
Sorry, I was on mute. I can hear you.
Greetings. Greetings, Shaheem. How are you this morning?
I'm morning, everyone. Hi, Christ. I'm good. Good. Thanks yourself.
That's good, yes. Incidentally, you'll notice in that folder that I was talking about, especially for you at your request, is a file, a PDF file showing free access databases. So there's one there that says free, I think it just says something like free access databases. And there are half a dozen or so there that you can look at. Many of them medically focused, but there are some that are more general.
Sorry, I can really hear you. I think you might have moved away from the microphone, but where do I find the file, Bryce? Where do you place the file? Did you email it to us? Where is it?
Shaheem, can I just give you the address again? So if you could go to an online site, https.
Give me a second.
Okay. They hear me from here, do they?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You want me to type it in the chat?
You could, if you wouldn't
Yeah,
mind.
you can type it in the chat as well.
Okay.
Thanks.
One of the colleagues is typing it into the chat. So it's a bit.ly folder, which basically has a number of files in it. So it's https : and then it's bit.ly, and then / Regent Resources. So if you go with an S, yeah. So if you go there, Shaheem, you'll see there are probably a dozen files, and one of them specifically refers to the fact that access to free or open academic databases.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
So that was just, yes. I better stand up. Yeah. Is this mic not? This mic's not doing the job. This is a different mic.
That's for them to hear you.
Oh, I see. Okay, so I better stand here.
No, it's fine. You can move a mic here.
I can move a mic here. Thanks very much. Sorry, I'm left-handed, so I tend to stand on the right. This is a bad habit to have.
Maybe just confirm. There you go.
Shaheem, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Ezekiel and Davina. Ezekiel?
So Davina says she can hear.
You can hear okay. Okay, colleagues, sorry, all this tech is kind of, we're okay.
asking on the...
Okay, so again, just to repeat from the slide, I think the online audience, just to give us an indication of what your data superpower is, and we're going to ask everyone just to tell us what their label is, if you like, their data label, and in case it's not all that clear to us, what it means. So I think the 5 minutes is up round about now. So can I start and ask you just to say, this is my data superpower, and this is what it means?
Yeah, so when it comes to me, I'm here because I don't think I currently have a superpower.
Okay.
But if I think about it, I don't think that I could fit into any particular one. I would think that the line of work that we do would require also, for example, we need to be a detective to find patterns for student success and employability, which is one of the portfolios I'm involved in. We will need to present that in good data visualizations and be able to tell the story to internal stakeholders.
Yes.
It's not like PowerPoint karaoke, so to speak.
Okay.
In terms of problem solving, we'll need to find that and address challenges whilst using Data Explorer to uncover sort of patterns and trends within the data, so we know what to respond to, emerging trends of what students may need out there. So yeah, I would like to be
A generalist, a data generalist.
data generalist.
Okay, I think that's a good label. Okay, data generalist. It means that you have to cover a lot of ground. Okay, but that's a good response. Yes, I think we all need to be data alert, because the one thing we should realize is this data is being used for us and against us all the time. It doesn't matter what you do and where you go, data of some sort is tracking you. And some of us let it happen and some don't know it's happening. So I let Google track me because I like to remember where I was a year ago. And so Google will show me a map of what I did and where I was. And fortunately, I don't have to account to anybody in my life anymore, so I can go anywhere I want to. So I'm not worried about anyone saying, but why did you go there? Not that I go to bad places, but the fact of the matter is we're all being tracked by our laptops, by our cellular devices, and that data is all going into all this kind of machine learning and big data to look for patterns. When you go to the supermarket and you use your supermarket card, all your data is being fed to the computer somewhere, and they say this person likes this kind of special, and they normally come to the shop on a Wednesday. We better make sure the special is available. Unless they're a pensioner, and then they have to come on Pensioners' Day. Which makes life a bit simpler from a data management point of view. Okay, so the next customer for...
Okay, I think I've none of this for now, but I would relate myself to data capture.
Okay.
Collect, process, and store.
Okay, and that's a very important role, because as we'll see when we get onto data cleaning, one of the problems we often have is incomplete data or inaccurate data. And when we start doing the analytics, we have to have a process of data cleaning in order to process the data effectively. Otherwise, we get bad answers. So we'll talk in the final section of today around data cleaning. And what we will discover is that what is acceptable data for one particular product, like Excel, is not an acceptable data product for another one, because it wants things in a particular format. And Excel will accept the format that we want to use, but the other product won't. So we have to set it up in such a way that we can take data from one application, like perhaps Excel to SPSS or something, and we have to know what the requirements are on the other side. So in a way, when you are capturing data, you need to be mindful of that, because even things like date formats can trip us up, because the Americans have a funny way of showing the date. I've never quite understood it, but we prefer it another way. And so Excel will, if you say to Excel, format it like that, it will. And if you say to Excel, format it like this, it will. But when you feed it to SPSS something, it only wants it one way. And therefore, you've got to clean that data to make sure it meets the requirement. Right, thanks for that. Okay, so data capture is a crucial part of the equation because it has all sorts of knock-on effects if you don't get it right. Tasneem.
I think data detective based on how I did my master's.
Okay.
But I quite like data explorer as well, so I'm hoping I can learn.
Okay.
Pick up some
New ways of doing it. Okay, thanks very much for that. Shaheen. What hat would you like to wear?
It's not on the screen.
Okay.
So my one is Jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades, okay. And master of some.
Emphasis on master of none. But Jack in hand is better than a master. So,
Okay.
honestly, I think all of us, everybody has elements of all.
Yes,
It's not
okay.
necessarily that you can have one particular hat.
Okay. So I'm guessing you probably lecture on random walk theory, which means that you jump in somewhere and you look for a solution and hopefully the path leads you somewhere you want to go.
I'm more sort of pragmatic.
More pragmatic, okay. Yeah, I think the bottom line is,
It's like Mario Brothers.
the bottom line is we often have to use the tools at our disposal
Yeah.
to collect data.
Definitely.
And sometimes it's not the kind of data that we can easily work with. And we have to get creative about how we reformat it, restructure it, revise it, or whatever the case may be, without destroying the underlying validity of the data. Yeah, so thanks for that. And I haven't forgotten that you're the SPSS man. Okay, Syed.
I think I'm more of a data Batman, so I take exception to the science.
Yes.
I don't much like That's why I take exception to this. No, but seriously, I think I'm more of a data evaluator,
Okay,
looking and I think more listening out for hidden voices.
okay,
Because I found that quite often respondents will tell you more from what they don't actually say, rather than what they would say.
that would say, yeah.
Yeah, and with this acute appreciation for reasons, going backwards, looking to the rearview mirror,
Yes,
and then the much larger windscreen going forward.
Okay.
Recommendation.
okay. So you don't want to drive looking in the rear view mirror. This is not a good way to go.
It's more important to look forward.
Okay. Yeah, I think the other thing that in a way you're touching on, often in data we find ways to reject outliers. And yet if we look at genius and innovation and all these other qualities, the people that are represented there are often outliers. They got freak scores and we say, well, we're going to exclude this person because they're messing up our figures here. You know, why have they got this rating? Why have they got that score? So we've got to be cautious when we're cleaning the data that when we deal with outliers, we're not actually missing something that could actually be quite important to us. So I think outliers are always something to concern ourselves with. Thanks for that. Right.
I don't have power, but I just tried. These are communicators.
Okay.
I can tell stories.
Okay, no, that's good. Okay.
Also, one of my colleagues suggested Number Ninja.
Okay. you chop it up with a big saw or sword. Yeah. Okay. So that's, yeah. I think the storytelling. If you read the management literature today, there's a big focus on storytelling. Everyone's got to be a storyteller. That's what they say in management. The chief exec's got to be a storyteller. Whoever is the leaders have to be storytellers, because we all still go back to those days where we remember stories that go something like this. Once upon a time in a kingdom far, far away lived a beautiful princess, and one day everything went pear-shaped. Okay, so we're all familiar with stories, and they speak to us at a level that pure analysis and data don't. But we can use that data to inform our stories. I'll just give you an example of one case like that. In Southeast Asia, some years ago now, various deficiency diseases were very common among small children, babies. Things like pellagra and beriberi and all sorts of others. Because in a rice-based culture, a lot of the essential amino acids, or at least one of the essential amino acids, is not present in rice. So if you live in a rice-based culture, in the same way here, we're a maize-based culture, the only reason we don't have those deficiency diseases anymore is that no maize can be sold without being fortified. So all maize that's sold in this country, other than corn on the cob, is actually fortified so that we don't get those deficiency diseases. In any event, in this country, there was a high level of deficiency disease, and an American group of consultants were appointed, and contrary to normal American consultant practice, they actually looked at things a bit differently. Instead of starting to do all sorts of complicated education programs and things like that, they actually asked a simple question. Okay, do all small children get deficiency diseases? And the answer was no. And then the question was, well, why not? And so they interviewed the mothers of those children who were not getting deficiency diseases, and they said to them, how do you feed your kids? And what they discovered was, in the rice paddies, you get lots of small little chojos, things like prawns and shrimps and things like that. And what the mothers whose kids did not get the deficiency diseases were doing, they were supplementing the rice diet with the protein from these crustaceans. And so they discovered something, straightforward. And then they did the next logical thing. They got those mothers to form mother groups and inform the other mothers about how to go about making sure your baby didn't get a deficiency disease. And in a space of less than a decade, deficiency diseases were a thing of the past. No kids got a deficiency disease. So there's an example where the data set was who's not getting the disease and why. And then once you wrangle that data, you can roll it into a useful approach to things. So that's a good story as well, by the way. Okay, Deshni.
A bit rusty with data analysis, but I'd like to think of myself as an investigative person, someone who wants to find a pattern and meaning to information that's there. So, and someone that tends to have, or one who tends to have a plethora of knowledge. So I think investigative gigabyte would be suited.
Okay, now that's a good one. I mean, it's about trying to find good quality information, because in this world of fake news and ChatGPT, there's a lot of rubbishy data out there, which if you're not careful, you end up believing. So for example, something like 70% of Americans still believe that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. Why do they believe that? I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Something like 30 or 40% of Americans believe in fairies. So again, you've got to ask yourself, what data are they drawing on to come up with these conclusions? Right. You're monitoring us? Okay. Kriyanka, yes, you're the lady who's going to tell us about how to use Excel. Okay.
So I like to think of myself as a data, agility and adaptability.
Okay, an agile data user.
Agile data.
Okay.
Because I like to think that I'm trying to keep up with the emerging trends.
Yes.
Which I'm hoping that could be imparted on us today.
Yes.
So it's more data exploring. That's what I like to do.
Okay. Thanks for that. Thank you. Abner.
I think for me, I would love to think of myself as a data problem solver.
Okay.
Because I think it's just a passion that I have. I always have this eagerness of going to website and find certain links.
Okay.
To be able to resolve specific problems that mostly are related to research.
So it's finding the right place for the information that you need, or sourcing the data that you need.
Yes.
That's useful to your central research process that you're going through. Okay, thanks so much. I'm going to jump to the background now before I come to Nabila. Munira.
So I don't use too much of data. The only kind of data I've dealt with is in my own research and sometimes looking at students. So I would think that I'm a data admin.
Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah, I mean, the advantage of being an apprentice is that if you are self-directed and you follow the principles of lifelong learning, you can rapidly transition away from that to being a data expert. So there's a path for you if you like it. Tasmia.
I consider myself a rookie.
Okay, a data rookie. Okay, now that's fine. One of the biggest challenges, and you will know this yourself, is that it's very difficult to help people to learn when they think they know the answers, because they come to the learning with a not invented here approach and say, well, you know, I didn't invent this, you know, I'm not going to listen to this rubbish. So it's always good in any situation to have an open mind to the learning that's possible. So for me, facilitating with you is as much a learning experience for me as it hopefully is for you. I'm not just kind of going away saying, well, I didn't learn anything. I'm learning quite a bit as I go along. So we have to be open to the learning process, yeah. Nabila.
I think with data analyzer, because we always have more students doing data from various sources and analyzing.
Okay. Okay. So Vera. Take the mic with me.
Because the guys are
Analytical alchemist.
Okay.
Because I primarily enjoy doing qualitative research. So like alchemy and analytics, it's more transformative.
Okay.
So, sort of transferring people's experiences and quantitative data into meaning and interpreting it.
Okay.
Like an alchemist.
Okay, now that's great. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the time we are dealing with qualitative data as opposed to quantitative, and I think I mentioned things like most significant change, and there are other tools like that that enable us to take qualitative information and convert it into quantitative. Okay, thanks very much for that. Sorry, I'm being told to stay down here. Rukia, what's your data thing? Okay.
So I'd say first and foremost probably Data Explorer.
Okay.
Always finding really interesting things out there for the students. Definitely a bit of visualization as well.
Okay.
So that when you're presenting something that the students will want to actually watch.
Yes.
And then data detective, because you can't always trust everything that you read.
Okay.
So making sure that your sources are
Okay. Yeah, because obviously people often fake data, rather like in any management organization, people, once they know what their key performance indicators are, they game them. They work out how to make their scores look good, not necessarily how to actually perform at the level that's wanted, but how to make their performance look good. So it's the same with data, that people draw on data because it informs a particular viewpoint, and they don't want to move away from it, and so they're challenged if you come up with another approach to it. Sadia.
Okay, I would say I'm a data explorer.
Okay.
I think it's quite fascinating researching data. You immerse yourself in a world of endless information, data analytics, and it's quite fascinating to know things that you didn't know before. So.
Okay, thanks very much. Navisha.
Thank you. I'd like to say probably data magician.
Okay, that's a nice one. I like it. You pull rabbits out of hats.
Yes, pretty much, because data is subject to interpretation as well.
Yes.
And what you see is not always how people can still interpret it differently. And if you don't read beneath the surface
Yes.
of what's being presented to you, you might misconstrue the data that you present.
Okay, now that's a good point. Thanks very much. Prof.
Data Explorer.
Data Explorer, okay.
What's the difference between a data magician and a data? That's a bigger word. Okay. Explorer, definitely.
Okay. So we all basically swim in data, and data is something that is taken very seriously. The project I'm working on at the moment in the UAE, the UAE's whole system is driven by a number of fundamental principles. One is excellence, and the second one is basically benchmarking, and the third one is being the best. So they basically make sure that they sign up for ISO registration in as many categories as possible, which gives them an international recognition. They enter the international excellence programs and win. They then make a lot of use of benchmarking, and therefore data drives them. So we've been asked to tell them how to be better. And given that they're already very good, my two fellow consultants and I are having a Zoom session tomorrow morning where we try and puzzle out how you make the people that are among the best even better. So we have to be very focused on the data that they are measuring themselves against. So we can say, well, if you did this, you could do that. So for example, one of their philosophies is what's called soft power. And soft power means that you have influence in the world. So some of their key performance areas around how to gain soft power. What can you do that other countries, for other countries, that they will value, and that will give you some of this magical quality of soft power. So data is a very important thing in the way they manage their whole process. And it's something that we could also happily adopt in our government departments in this country. Okay, so let's move on from there. The program is broadly that we're going to do an introduction to data analytics. We're going to do some data visualization. We're going to have a tea break at around 10:15. We're going to do some statistical analysis, or discuss it at any rate. We're going to talk about machine learning algorithms. We're going to have a lunch break. We're going to talk about big data management. And then we have a case study towards the end of the day that's scheduled to last about 45 minutes, and then with a debrief thereafter. So this is broadly the plan for the day. The goal really is just to help you in this whole area of utilizing data analytics tools, because essentially a researcher, it's perhaps too dramatic to say lives or dies, but they live or die by the data. And incidentally, colleagues that are online, sorry, I'm coming back to you because I forgot that you're out there. Can I ask you whether you would mind giving us your data status, as it were? So can we just see who's out there? So we've got, can I start with Shaheem? Shaheem, can you tell us what your data mastery is?
Yeah, I think I'm data Aquamed.
Okay. Okay, thanks very much. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm data Aquamed.
Okay, and that means what?
Data just flows through one year and out that.
Okay, this is an interesting analogy. I like it, yeah. I think there's such a data stream out there that sometimes we need it to flow in one ear and out the other. Hopefully odd bits stay behind and inform the way we go forward. So thanks for that. Hezekiel, are you able to tell us what your one is?
Good morning.
Morning, Hezekiel.
Yes, regarding data, I hardly use these days, but otherwise, I've used SPS before and a little bit of Excel
Okay.
to do my analytics and graphics.
Okay. Okay, thanks very much for that. Thank you. Davina, are you able to give us your...
Yeah, I was going to choose none of the mountains. I'm not pro at any one of them.
Okay.
And then just as a joke, I was going to say, if you give me a data set and spot the difference or choose the odd one out, then yeah, I'm really good at that.
Okay.
It's of no use in the research field. So
Okay.
I just have a bit of knowledge about each one, I think, but I'm not pro in any.
Okay, well, I think it's interesting because being able to identify data anomalies is quite an important skill. So if you're able to look at a data set and see the flaws, that's quite a powerful quality. So back to detective in a way. Yes, thanks very much. Thank you. Spongaseni. Spore. Sorry. I'll give up on him. Okay, thanks again for that. Okay, so let's go back into our objectives. And basically, data visualization is the first of the elements of data analytics, which we've talked about broadly. And the idea is that we understand the principles of effective data visualization, that we familiarize ourselves with common chart types and the appropriate usage, that we introduce data visualization tools such as Excel, Tableau, and Power BI, that we engage on hands-on exercise to create a simple visualization using a sample data set, technology permitting. I keep saying that because I'm a bit nervous about that one, but we'll see. Okay, so just for the information of everybody, I have put brief write-ups on Tableau and Power BI in that folder. So we're not really going to go there because not many people, well, we haven't come across anyone who's using them. And so we'll just stay with Excel from a practical point of view. But I have given you a write-up on each of those that tells you where to go to get it, whether it costs you money, what the characteristics are, what the benefits, the pluses and minuses are. So we're going to talk about them broadly here, but there's a more comprehensive Word document, I think it is. I should have converted it to PDF, but there is a Word document that will tell you a bit about each of those other tools in more detail if you wanted to explore them. Okay, so what are the principles of effective data visualization? First of all, clarity and simplicity, keeping visualizations clear and concise and using simple and understandable elements. So one of the first things is this PowerPoint slide probably breaks the rules, because if you look at all the guidelines on PowerPoint slides, they tell you to have relatively few points and preferably not to use bullet points. So I'm probably in breach of clarity and simplicity, but hopefully it's not totally beyond understanding. So we need to keep our visualizations clear and concise. We need to use simple and understandable elements. We need to be careful that when people see the data, they understand what it means. So those of you, for example, who do project management will know that often some of the project management tools give very, very complex charts and diagrams and tables and so on. And if we are working, for example, in a rural community and we want to keep them on board and have them understand what the project's about, then probably we just want a simple bar chart that shows the time duration of each activity, the extent to which they run in parallel or overlap, or one is dependent on the other before you can start it. So maybe just a simple bar chart rather than showing them a very complicated project tool is a better way to communicate, perhaps, when you're trying to explain what the project phases are and how long each one takes. And how they fit together from a timing point of view. The relevance and context, address the intended purpose and provide meaningful insights. Obviously, if you are writing a research report and you include an infographic or a bar chart or a pie chart or a scattergram or a regression analysis, it needs to speak to the topic that you are writing on, obviously. It should be incorporated, and it should basically fulfill the role that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So any chart that you do should be easily interpreted by the people that are looking at it. It should be accurate and honest. You should protect the data accurately without misleading representation, and you should use proper scales, labels, and annotations. One of the quickest ways to try and deceive people is to do a chart that's on a scale of 100, but only do it from 80 upwards, so that they're not aware that there's a whole lot down here that's not even in the picture. So people often present charts in a way that dramatizes the process because they haven't shown us the full picture. So we have to be careful to be honest about the way we present data. And we also have to think carefully about the significance of what we are trying to say. You often see people talking about data and saying, well, the rating has gone from 17.1 to 17.3. And everyone gets excited. And then you say to yourself, but is that significant? Is it maybe just an artifact? Is it a statistical oddity? Is it really meaningful to get all excited because you've gone from a score of 17.1 to 17.3? And obviously it depends on what you're measuring and what the sample size is and to what extent you rely on it to track progress. So again, it's not just a matter of looking at it and saying, oh, the graph's going up or down. The question is, what is it telling me about the status of the system that I'm recording? And we know that often when we do analysis of statistics, we impute a cause and result or outcome to data that has no relationship at all. You can often find correlations between totally ridiculous things and find that there's a very good correlation between them. And then the question is one causing the other, or is this just an accident of fate? So we've got to be very careful when we're looking to cause and effect type relationships, regression analysis, and so on, that in fact we're not just correlating things with each other that have no real relevance at all. And so someone made the point about being very cautious about data. I think a number of people did. It's always very good when we look at diagrams to say, so what is the magical word? So what? What is this telling me? Is it meaningful? And is it showing me something useful? Or is it just one of those things that happen by chance? And then we need to have visual appeal. We need to design visually appealing charts. We need to use colors, fonts, and layouts that support data understanding. And these are underlying principles of how we present things. And we also need to recognize that not everyone is familiar with the standard depictions of regression lines and scattergrams and even pie charts. Not everyone understands what a pie chart is telling them. They're not familiar with what it is. And you say, well, that slice equals this and this slice equals that. And sometimes even that level of abstraction is something that people are not really getting the message on. So we need to try and tailor our data to the audience. The way we present the data, the way we help them visualize the data, we need to tailor to the audience that we are dealing with. Not everyone is familiar with bar charts and pie charts and that sort of thing. So your audience will also determine the kind of visualization tools you use to present data. Okay, so now we're going to touch on these, and after the tea break, technology permitting, as I'm saying a lot this morning, I'm going to show you some extracts from the video that has been, one of the videos that's been shared with you that describes these in a bit more detail. But here we're just going to talk through what these things are, and we're going to look at them in a little bit more detail before the tea break, and during the tea break I'm going to hopefully get onto our LMS and also onto a couple of other places that I want to get to, and then I can share some more information with you. So bar charts are ideal for comparing values across different categories or groups, and we can use horizontal or vertical bars to represent data. So we might have, for example, the proportion of people that buy certain items, and we might have them by age or by gender or by income category, and we can do a bar chart that shows their relative importance. If we're monitoring who are our most important customers, maybe we can do it by looking at age groups and saying, okay, what proportion of our sales are made to the people under 18, from 19 to 25, from 26 to 40, etc. We would set ourselves some different age categories, and we would then analyze our sales and draw a bar chart showing the relative importance of each of those age groups in terms of their purchase of a particular product or their use of a particular service. So for example, we could do a bar chart that showed what proportion of time people spend on the internet each day, typically, and we would find that if we did it by age group, we would find that some people are heavy internet consumers, and as they get older, typically their internet use drops off. And that might tell us something about if we were trying to work out how to market to particular age groups, what would we be expecting? Or we might have data that tells us what proportion of their time people spend on TikTok or Instagram or Pinterest or some other platform by age or by gender. I'm told that women spend a lot more time on Pinterest than men do. I'm not sure that's true, but there's some raw data about that. And so, again, if we were trying to market our services to a particular customer group, we could find some useful data. And of course, those platforms, including Facebook, those of you who've ever done Facebook advertising will know that with Facebook, you can slice and dice the people that you show your advert to by all sorts of criteria, particularly geography, gender, interests, age, and so you can say, I only want people living within a 30-kilometer radius of Howick to see this advert for my Wednesday night pizza special, and I only want it to go to women, and I want them to be in the 45 to 60 age group. And
market segmentation.
Market segmentation, indeed, yes. So Facebook allows you to segment your market quite dramatically. The only thing that puzzles me about Facebook is I think they have 25 different gender categories, which I find quite puzzling, and I'm not quite sure how you would use that in trying to market your product. But if you go onto Facebook and say, I want to give you my gender, they don't just give you 3 or 4 options. They give you a whole lot, some of which I think you need a degree to begin to understand what they actually mean. But the point is, bar charts are a quick and easy way to share data about usage, about consumption, about interests that people have. And that can be very, very powerful. Okay, so line charts show trends and changes over time, and they enable us to connect data points in order to highlight patterns. So the presentation that the client gave us had lots of graphs with uptrends, and then there were a couple of graphs with downtrends, but those they passed over very quickly. So we have to now go back and say, but hold on, this is dropping. What's going wrong? Pie charts we've talked about, and I'm going to show you a little write-up on each of them. Scatter plots are very useful in terms of trying to find patterns. And then histograms showing the distribution and frequency of numerical data, where we organize data into intervals or bins to show the frequency of values. And essentially, histograms can also, most of these can inform each other. The histograms can inform the bar charts quite straightforwardly. Okay, so let's just look at the bit in a bit more detail. Incidentally, again, for those of you who are finding the AI world interesting, all these images were generated in Bing using the image generation product that Bing is linked into, and all done for free, fortunately. So here, Bing was asked to generate an example of bar charts, and that's exactly what it did. So bar charts are ideal for comparing values across different categories or groups, and we can use horizontal or vertical bars to represent data. And those are some examples of what a bar chart would look like. Then when we talk about line charts, they're effective for showing trends and changes over time, and they connect data points with lines to highlight patterns. Again, you can see here that this one also cheated a bit when it was asked to generate the line graphs, and it threw in a couple of bar charts as well to inform the slide. So these kind of graphs are very powerful when it comes to monitoring trends over time. Then we can have pie charts with strange labels and strange languages. And we know that pie charts enable us to show in any population or any sample what proportion of the data belongs in a particular category. So 34% of people who buy pizzas from our pizza place are over the age of 60. How would we know that? Well, we'd have to be good at reading people's ages, I think, unless they were prepared to volunteer their age in giving us data. And of course, if we had access to the population register, which some people have, we can just feed their name to the population register, and it will tell us what their date of birth was. So the pie chart, again, is very useful when we're looking and saying, well, and we can also have a pie chart today and a pie chart 5 years ago, and we can look at what the relative share is. And we can make the pie chart from 5 years ago smaller proportionately to the one for today, which is bigger because the market has grown, for example. So the pie chart can show both, in a way, trends over time. It can show that people over 60 have dropped from 45% of the market share for our pizzas down to 35. But the amount that they're buying has increased because the market size has increased. So it's just another way of being able to present a fair amount of data in just one straightforward image. Yes, sir, Prof.
The bar chart and pie charts are not where you can find bars or where you can find pies.
Sometimes they are, you know. You can do a survey. Yes, just checking. Yes, say it.
This pie chart looks more like a pizza.
It looks more like a pizza. Yeah, I think you'll find that the image generation software was a bit confused. It thought, pie chart, what is a pie chart? So here's a case where you need to get the language processing sorted out. It needs to know the distinction between a pie, as in something you would eat, and a pie chart, which is some way of depicting things. So that's a good observation. It got a bit confused about whether it was a food item or some other tool. So This one is a bit more cryptic, but we can see some sort of indication of a scatter plot there. And normally what we would do is we would then try and fit a curve to that. And the curve could be a straight line curve. It could be an exponential curve. Often when we look at the growth of something, the curve is exponential. So it starts off slow and it just keeps doubling and doubling and doubling and doubling. And that would be an exponential curve. It's rather like the famous story of the person who was asked, who did something for a king, I think it was, or an emperor or a president, and they said to him, we'll give you whatever you want. And the person said, well, I want 1 talent, which I think was a currency of the time, and I want you to put it on a chessboard on one of the 64 squares, and then on each succeeding square, I want you to double up. So I want you to go 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. And the answer on the 64th square, which I don't have in the top of my mind, was such that they didn't have enough talents in the whole country to give them what they wanted. So exponential growth is something that we often don't lose sight of, and particularly if we're younger and we realize the power of the exponential growth. We know that if you invest something 25 years ago, it's going to grow a lot more than if you start now. So the rule of life for young people is start investing money as soon as you can and don't buy too much stuff, because the stuff it accumulates but it doesn't compound. So I know somebody who's fairly wealthy, and he was an investment advisor for one of the papers here in Durban. He's still around. And he invested as he was telling other people to do 50 years ago. And every time I look at him and his wife's profile on Facebook, they're off to one or other exotic destination or the other. But that's not because he became wealthy from any other reason than he started investing way back and got the benefit of the power of compounding or exponential growth. So it's something to teach your children or your grandchildren. Start investing the minute you start working, because that's what's going to make your old age a comfortable one. Okay, so those are scatter plots, and then histograms. They depict the distribution and frequency of numerical data. They organize data into intervals or bins to show the frequency of values. So there's a slightly unusual histogram. Again, it probably got a little confused about what a histogram should look like. They're generally a bit squarer than that, but nevertheless, it's showing some sort of distribution pattern. Okay, so I want to suggest, colleagues, because I would like to just make sure we can access the Excel tool, that we take our coffee break now. Does that work for everybody? I think everything's there. It's 10:21. If we can try and be back in about 15 minutes, maybe 22. And by then, hopefully, I've wrangled Excel into doing what I wanted to do. Thank you.
There's it in the chat, right?
So, thanks very much. Sorry, I'm going to need to be here with the keyboard. Sorry, not a problem. Right, colleagues, are we all back? Am I back on the air? Shaheem and colleagues, are you able to hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thanks, Shaheem. Thanks, colleagues. Okay, so there are two things I'd like to do now. One is needs you to be in Excel. You need to have opened that file, which has been dropped into the chat, Shaheem and Ezekiel, and you need to open it in Excel. So that's the one little task. I've already opened it for myself. So that's what it should look like when you've opened it, hopefully. And is everyone kind of on the same page? Okay, so having told you to do that, just park that one for a moment, because I just want to take you back in, hopefully, to the videos that have been shared with you. So let's just see whether I can find it. No, it's back into the Excel. Let me just find the Chrome one. Yeah, this is here, yeah. Okay, so this is one of the videos that has been shared with you. There are 9 altogether. We're just going to watch a little bit of this one. So each of them has these strange looking people. I've always thought, but anyway, I'm not a designer of remote learning material. And they're little short videos. They are mobile friendly, so you can watch them on your mobile device or on your laptop. There is a quiz at the end of each set of videos, and if you complete the quiz and get it right, it'll give you a certificate of completion, which might give you a sense of accomplishment. We don't have, we haven't got leaderboards and things like that, because we're not trying to make you too competitive, but as you'll probably know, many of these LMSs have ways of showing how you're doing relative to everyone else. So we're just going to watch a bit of this, because if I remember correctly, it does address some of the topics that we're interested in. So I'm just going to click here. So just to repeat, everybody should have got, I think, 11 emails, of which 9 related to content to do with data, 1 related to content to do with research, and 1 was an explanation of how to get onto the platform, log in, et cetera, which Natalie recorded especially. Okay, so let's see whether we can get this to talk to us.
Possess at least a basic knowledge of math and statistics. Data can be incredibly valuable. Use data correctly and you can drive sales, grow your customer base, and make better decisions. Get it wrong though, and you can hurt your business. So it's important to make sure that both you and your employees are data literate. Despite data literacy being so important, studies have shown that only 32% of companies get real or measurable value from data. That means most organizations still have huge, untapped potential at their fingertips. They just need the skills to take advantage of it. Examples of data literacy skills that employees might need or use are interpreting data visualizations, like charts and graphs, knowing what type of data to use for a specific purpose, understanding data analytics tools and when to use them, recognizing when data might be used in a false or misleading way, communicating information to people who aren't data literate, thinking critically about information taken from data analysis.
Okay, so that's just an example of the videos. I think this one might be of use to us at the moment. Let's just have a look-see.
Remember that acquiring data is just the first step in solving problems. You also need to know how to use data to be able to provide the right answers. So, how do you do it? Select each area to find out more.
Okay, so now it's going to talk to us about various things. It's going to talk about graphs and charts.
You can create graphs and charts in commonly available spreadsheet software by providing the data and selecting which graph or chart you require. But you still need to have an approximate idea of how they'll turn out. Otherwise, you won't know if you've done it right. For example, if you look at this list of figures, you should be able to estimate the sizes of each category when they're visualized in a pie chart. That will give you an idea of how the finished chart should look. Model 1, 15%. Model 2, 25%. Model 3, 60%. Or, if you're creating a graph from the same data, you should have an idea of the trend it should show. If the result is wildly different from your estimate, for example, if the trend goes the opposite way to the one you expect, you'll need to check to make sure you've done it right. Get it wrong, and you could be presenting fiction as facts and doing harm to your business.
Okay, so colleagues, I would encourage you to watch them and to complete the quizzes, because especially the people, and I won't name them now, but the ones who said that data wasn't part of their lives, but who would like data to be part of their lives, especially the people that said they were rookies and beginners and so on, those people particularly, this could be quite a useful way of doing it, and you'll get some sense of comfort once you've completed the 9 videos, because they're not long. They typically run out at, I don't know, 8 to 15 minutes maximum for all the videos in the series. It does have an intro to the video, so you can decide, to the course rather, so you can decide whether you want to give it your time, and then it gives you the 3 or 4 little mini videos, and then it gives you a quiz at the end, and it gives you a chance to repeat, I think once or twice, before it knocks you out, and then it will issue a certificate of completion, and there are boards that enable you to track which courses you've completed and which ones you haven't. So I just wanted to make you aware that this is, although we're not using it here intensively, it's a very important backup for what we're doing here today. So I really would encourage everyone to complete them all. And in about a month's time, I'm going to go onto as an administrator and check out who in the group has actually done the courses, just for my own interest more than anything else, because it also enables. I'm both an administrator, an instructor, and a student on this platform, so I can go in as an administrator and see who's playing by the rules, as it were. Okay, so colleagues, that was just to reinforce. There's some good content there. The videos are good. When we show to people, initially people are skeptical, and then we find that they become converts. Okay, so now we have this database here, and hopefully everyone's screen looks more or less the same as mine does. Is that reasonable to say? Okay, now this is on my computer, which I haven't been able to recreate here. It has a much fancier board at the top, because I've put a whole lot of plugins in, and I haven't done them here, because I thought I was going to be on my computer this morning. But in any event, there are a number of built-in plugins in Excel. Let's just see that I can show you where they are, what you do to get them. Let's just find out. So if you look here, how do I add data analysis to Excel for free? Okay, so you click the Tools menu, you go to Add-ins, and then you select the Analysis Tool Pack, and that comes with Excel. And when you do, it's going to scare the wits out of you, scare the wits out of me, because it's got so much functionality that you don't know what to do. So is anyone here able to go into the Tools menu and download the Analysis Tool Pack? Can we just get a reality check? Does some systems stop you putting add-ins or plugins in? Are you able to go there, colleagues?
Where's
So here the story is, it's obviously a Microsoft product, and it's part of it comes with Excel for you. So those of you who want to become real experts on using Excel for data analysis, you can go and add this particular plugin. I think there's at least one other that's free, without having to get fancy and pay anybody. And it's called the Analysis Tool Pack. And it should be via your Tools menu. Okay, so I'm not sure where the Tools menu is. Colleagues, I don't want to waste time on it, but just when you get a moment to wrestle, just go there and add it. For those of you who want to make it your go-to app. We've already established that very few people here have got access to Tableau or to Power BI. Power BI also is free, by the way. It's also a Microsoft product, and it also integrates with Excel. So you can have two for the price of one. Tableau will cost you money. So again, if you really want to become expert, someone needs to train you probably, I would guess, for 4 or 5 days to actually use all the functionality that's available to you in Excel. Okay, so just a kind of thing, a takeaway if you like. Okay, so let's go back to Excel now. Is everybody on this page in their Excel? Okay, so what I want you to do now, hopefully this is going to work, I want you to go to Insert. I want you to select the first set of data. I want you to go from here and select that there. Okay, everyone able to do that? Yeah. So you select all that data, and then you go to Insert, and then there's the magic. Can you see that lovely word there? It says recommended charts. So AI is working for you in this particular case. It's actually looking at what you've selected, and it's saying, hey, here's some thoughts. So you don't even have to bend your mind too far in order to be able to analyze this data. So let's go over here now, and we'll look at the recommended charts. And these are the recommendations. It's offering you a clustered column chart. It's offering you this chart here. It's offering you this chart here. It's offering you this chart here. And it's offering you, so if we click on that one, if we thought that the clustered column was the way to go, and then we say OK, as they say in the classics, Bob's your auntie. So here is a chart now of that data.
I'm getting excited.
Okay, colleagues, does that make sense to you? So, it's, as the little boy next door always says to me, it's easy peasy. So you just have to get your data set in a table form, and then you just ask the software to actually what chart it could recommend. Okay, and then you'll see here, as with all Excel things, you can do a number of things with it. You can add, remove, or change elements. You can change the title, the legend, the grid lines, the data labels. You can start to change the style of the graph, and you can also come down here and you can filter the data points, all of which we don't have time for today. But just to show you that you can make this graph look really like a McKinsey or PricewaterhouseCoopers chart that they show you and charge you big money for, rather than a very simple chart like here. Now, I'm not saying this in this case is the best chart to demonstrate this, because we'd have to go back, as we said, and look at the data and say, is this telling me what I want to know? Or is, because we actually are including product categories, months, and sale amounts. So we might want to categorize rather by month and by department. So we would have to slice and dice this data. And we can do that. We could go over here and we could do something like, just instead of selecting the whole thing, just select this bit here. And then we can, again, we can go and do another recommended chart. And let's see what it looks like this time, and say OK. And now it's, OK, it's still doing the same thing. OK, we'd have to kill some of the data on the left-hand side. OK, colleagues, so can we see the basic functionality that's already available to you in Excel? OK, can I just have some thoughts on whether you feel it's something that would be of value to you in your academic career and in your research work, for example? Because at the moment, how do you generate charts? You have to do it the hard way. And now Excel is doing it for free. Okay, any questions or comments about it? There are obviously a lot of other Excel plugins, some of them far more sophisticated. Often you have to pay for them, but I think for most purposes, just getting the use of the basic functionality is fine. So here, for example, no, it's not doing what I wanted to do. Hold on. Sorry, I'm just trying to get out of here, but not to worry. Okay, so what we can also do when we go to insert, it does offer us other things here. In other words, we don't have to go with the recommendations. So for example, it's offering us here, if you look under this one, it's offering us 2D bar column, 3D column, 2D bar, 3D bar, and other column charts. And if we go a little bit over here, it's offering us other charts, 2D line, 3D line, 2D area, 3D area. And again, if we go here, it will offer us tree maps and sunbursts if we want to do that sort of exotic thing. And it'll offer us histograms and box and whisker. So box and whisker can also be quite a useful thing because it shows us some indication of central tendency because we've got showing the range that the data is offering us. So colleagues, I don't want to spend too much time on this. I just wanted us to be aware that, and of course our famous favorite, we can have donuts, not just pies. This will really confuse the AI. We can also have donuts, not just pies. Okay, so let's just stop for one moment and ask you whether you feel this level of functionality is something that you could use, not in your everyday life, not every minute of every day, but that you could use as a useful tool in doing some sort of analysis of the data at your disposal. Yeah, does it make some sense? Okay. So, of course, we use data for all sorts of purposes, and we're going to do a case study later in the day where we look at the different alternative ways we could do it in a business school. But we can use it for exam results. We can use it for HR issues. And we can use it for almost anything. We could look at a group of people in HR. If we have a PDP and we have a KPI for people, performance management system, we can analyze the relative performance of different categories of people against the key performance indicators. We can look at students and look at their relative performance, one group of students against another, bearing in mind two important things. The first one being privacy, and the second one being confidentiality. So if we're going to run reports and analyze student performance, for example, and we then publish the information in charts and diagrams and pie charts, and we've only got one student in Sierra Leone, then everyone's going to know who that one student is. So we've got to be careful that our data is not disclosing information that perhaps the person wouldn't like us to disclose. So if we did a country profiling of results, for example, said let's look at the average performance of students by country that are doing our MBA on this particular subject, and we use bar charts and pie charts and so on, then we would be careful that we didn't end up with one student sitting quietly in a little category of their own and their results being known to the whole world. If you understand the point that I'm getting to, that you need to think about when you share data, are you in fact, being fair to everybody who's reflected in that data set. Because maybe it's not as clear-cut as we might like. Okay, colleagues, so we don't have too much time to play around with Excel today, but I just wanted to show you that you already have at your disposal a tool that you can use. And Microsoft are very good. If you go into Microsoft and look for use of Excel tools, it will show you screenshots, it will show you processes to follow, it will give you advice, all for free. So you can invest your own time in getting up to speed on all these types of bits of information. Okay, colleagues, I want to move on from this purely from a time point of view, but hopefully one of your takeaways from today will be, hey, I can make Excel, even if I can't make it sing and dance, at least I can make it take a couple of new steps. Not just use at sum and at standard deviation and at average and at this and at that. We can actually dance with it and let it do the donkey work, as it were. Okay, colleagues, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint now. Okay, so we were on this chart when we stopped, and basically, as it says here, Excel offers us a wide range of built-in charting capabilities. It creates charts by selecting data and choosing chart types. There are customization options. We saw that with those various tools down the right-hand side of the chart. So we can enhance the visual appeal and effectiveness. And it's a versatile tool for creating visualizations with ease. So it's not rocket science to use. Okay. Okay. So let's go on to the next one. Tableau. Okay. So as I mentioned, I have included a brief write-up on Tableau in that same directory for those of you who are interested in going down that path. Since no one here is using it, it doesn't seem productive to spend time exploring it too greatly. But it's another very powerful data visualization tool. It has advanced features and interactivity. You can connect it to various data sources. We saw when we were talking about research tools that one of the colleagues mentioned they were able to connect their search to their actual data capture system, so they didn't have to do it in two steps, they could do it in one. And the same here applies here to the fact that you can connect to various data sources. I would just repeat the caution here that if you move from using Excel to using any other visualization tool or data analysis tool, they are generally a lot fussier about the format. And we'll talk about that in one of the, when we look at that Excel spreadsheet again. There are a couple of other little lessons we're going to draw from that particular set of data. Not the one we've just worked on, but the other sets of data that are in that spreadsheet. So it enables you to create interactive dashboards and visualizations. It has a user-friendly interface with drag and drop functionality, and it empowers users to create dynamic and interactive visualizations with ease. But all these things, these products in particular, have a fairly steep learning curve. So it's not a journey to embark on lightly. And then Power BI, I said this is another Microsoft product, and this one you just plug in. You can plug it into Excel. You can see that here you can use it for modeling, and it's a robust business intelligence tool. This is one that the people who are doing business research in particular might find of value. So you'll be able to go and pull data from various business databases, and you're still in Excel, but it's a plug-in to Excel. So I haven't tried to do that today, but it's not that complicated to do. Again, there's a write-up on Power BI that I've put into your folder. So if you go there, it'll tell you how to activate it.
We've used it for the exam results.
Oh, have you?
And one of the things it gave us, for example, a rating of people and their marking, how strictly they marked or how leniently in terms of the results.
Oh, really? Very interesting.
So it pulled that, if somebody marked more than one module or something like that,
yes,
it pulled that data and it analyzed it and it said, well, this person, average mark they give is 70% or whatever.
Okay, yes.
Against some who might have a lower average, that type of
Okay. And so, did you take it further and actually share that with the people?
Yeah, it was shared with some of the people, but it was broad. It didn't really
drill down.
You had to then look at the scripts and look at the actual thing. That was some of the data we got out of Power BI.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a real life example. So you didn't own up earlier that you'd used it.
No, I didn't use it. I was just privy to the information.
Oh, you were privy to the information. Okay. It's a bit like, I don't know about your business school, but at the business school that I went to 1,000,000 years ago, we used to rate the lecturers every term.
Yes.
And those ratings were put up on a board, public availability of the lecturers. And it caused some tremendous stress on some of the lecturing staff to see how the students rated their knowledge, their approach, their various dimensions of the way they had done the work. Okay, so there's a real practical example then of how you can use it. You can look at whether there are any people that are, the classic way to mark assignments is you stand at the top of a flight of stairs and you put A, B, C, D, E, and then you just throw them all down the stairs. And the ones that land on stair A, you give A's, and the ones that land on stair B, you give B's, and so on. So that's the staircase method of marking assignments. And
unfortunately, it's
all driven by a computer.
So it's not scripts that you have.
Yes.
So you can't throw them.
Throw the laptop.
Yeah, throw the laptop.
Yeah, that's right. It's quite interesting. I don't know about you, but I was looking back at some of my school reports because I'm a hoarder of documents, much to my family's disgust. So I've got my report cards going back to class 1 and class 2 and class 3 and so on. And I was reflecting on it and sharing it with some of my family, where the teacher said some fairly scurrilous things about me. That today, when teachers in schools make school reports, they're actually given a template. You can't say Johnny is a disruptive force, which is what one of the teachers said about me. Yeah, that's right, yes. So it actually homogenizes the whole process. So, but sometimes the people are so bad. We had one pupil in my class at high school in grade 12. And he was a particularly problematic student. And the headmaster's final report was, Fred Bloggs attended this school from 1959 to 1963. that was his total testimonial for Fred Bloggs, because that's as much as he felt he could say. So today it's all done in a very structured way, and we can't have any outliers. We've got to just follow the nice curve. Okay, so Prof gave us a good example of how you can use this product. Okay, then we get onto statistical analysis, and we're going to talk about this, and we're not necessarily going to do it physically, but I'm just going to make sure I think we're probably all familiar with the concepts. So I just want to make sure, I don't want to waste time on it, but I just want to say, do we all understand what a mean is, a mode, a median? Do we understand what a standard deviation is? Do we understand what a normal distribution is? Because, again, we can take the data and run it through these kind of analysis, and that can be useful. And I'm just going to touch on some of these and why they are of value to us, because we often just... So we're going to talk about descriptive and inferential statistics, the ones we infer. We're going to talk about measures of central tendency, dispersion and distribution. We're going to talk about hypothesis testing and regression analysis, and we're going to talk about statistical analysis software. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we are going to at least talk about it. Okay, so what are descriptive statistics about? They enable us, misspelt slide, which I must have missed in the early hours, summarizing and describing data. We gain insight into data characteristics, and the key components are measures of central tendency, measures of dispersion and distribution. Okay, so let's just talk about this for a moment and just look at how these tools can be useful or not. If you wanted to work out the mean salary of a South African, the average, you would find that the answer was not really all that representative. You would be more inclined to take maybe the median, midway between the lowest salary and the highest salary, because we have a lot of people earning low salaries, and we have a couple of very lucky people who are earning 10 figures. How many figures a year is it? About eight figures a year, some of them. Wati Basson and some of his friends, and even some people who are trying to avoid going to Germany at the moment, they were earning figures in the 8 figures. We don't often get people in the 9 figures in this country, although it's not that uncommon in America. So when we are trying to look at data, often the average is not really representative of the sample or the group that we're looking at. So we would then look at the median and say the median. So the median salary in South Africa, if I remember correctly, the last time I ran through my mind, is about 20,000 Rand a month. So that's what the person right in the middle between the lowest and the highest paid is typically earning. And that's not a bad figure to use when you're describing what people earn in South Africa. And for example, let us say I'm trying to persuade a company to pay for a training program, and I know how many employees they've got. Then I would multiply that by 20,000 by 12 and throw in a bit for the annual bonus, and then I would take 1% of that and say to them, our offering is less than 1/4% of your annual payroll based on our analysis, and therefore you've still got 3/4 of your budget if you spend 1% on training to spend on other initiatives. So you try and place your offering in context. So when we market our LMS, we will say to them, if you sign up for this LMS, it's going to cost you less than this % of payroll typically in a year, and therefore we reckon you should sign up for it. So the mode is the most frequently occurring one, and again, it can be useful information, but it may also sometimes be a reflection of the fact that we don't have a complete data set, that we've got one group of people. I mentioned, just a small example, my granddaughter trying to do a survey for her degree in psychology, and the only people she could get to complete it were members of the family. So we can be sure that that sample is a little skewed in terms of its characteristics. So the same sometimes when we look at the mode, it might also show us something that's more to do with the data set than with the actual underlying data. Okay, everyone's familiar with all these, I guess. This is something that we all, even if we have to dredge it up from our memory banks, we know it. Okay, so the range can also be useful, and that's where the whisker diagram comes in. So a whisker diagram will show us the maximum and the minimum, and then in the middle, not a whisker, what's it? It is a whisker diagram, I think, yeah. The whisker diagram will show us in the middle what the sort of mean and the median are, and then the whiskers show us the range. From here to here, we get people. The variance is also giving us some indication of how variable the data is, and then the standard deviation is very important. For example, I'm sure we all know that in a normal distribution, 34% of the sample lie within one standard deviation of the mean. Another 14% lie within 2 standard deviations of the mean. And then the others lie from the 3rd standard deviation outwards. So a normal distribution gives us a good way of looking at the data and seeing what our distribution is. Even, I guess, you might use it for marking, where you would do it and see, look, first of all, the mean has shifted from one year to the next. We need to shift it back, which we have suspicions that people like Umalusi and others like that probably do. When everything's marked, they put the curves together and say, last year the average was this, and this year the average is this. We need to bump it one way or the other. But it also has a significance. For example, you will know as people in the management side of things, something called 6 sigma. And that is a measure of how frequently something occurs. So a 6 sigma company will want less than 1 fault per 1,000 products. So that would be a 6 sigma measure. At one stage, I was asked to do an assignment in Howick with Dunlop, who were making the radiator hoses for Toyota or Ford or somebody like that. And those companies, those big companies like Toyota and Ford, they all operate within 6 sigma. And the fault rate coming out of the factory, Dunlop factory, was greater than the measure that was required. So what they did was they sent us in and said that first of all they give them a written warning. This is like in the disciplinary process. First written warning, you're out of tolerance, sort it out. And then we went in and looked at the process. And when you make radiator hoses, it's quite interesting. I didn't know a lot about it before, and I still don't know all that much about it. But basically, you have to vulcanize rubber. And if you don't vulcanize properly, you get bubbles. And then when you put the hose in and it's subject to stop-start traffic along the M4 and your radiator temperature goes up, suddenly the bubble bursts. And now you break down alongside the freeway. So it's quite an important thing to avoid, bubbles in vulcanized tubes. So we went in to look at the process and wrote a report on what we found and why we thought they needed to make some adjustments so that they could be taken off the warning list as being something that was done. I worked with a client in the UK who actually puts people in car plants. So what happens is in a car plant, one of the things they do is fit a car radio and disc player. And if you let the car plant people do it, they are not all that careful about it. And then your radios fail when they come out of the final inspection. So my client actually has people on the floor that don't work for the motor company, they work for my client, and their job is to fit the radio to make sure it doesn't fail the test at the end of the process. And the car company is very happy because this is a free resource. They don't have to pay this person because the person who supplies the radio, tape player, whatever, is paying for them. And that way they make sure they don't fail, they don't fall foul of the 6 sigma rule. So this question of statistical measurements is actually quite crucial in many industries where companies operate to a particular standard. and where if you fall down, then there are penalties that can result in you not being able to do business with certain suppliers. Okay, so that's about standard deviations and normal distributions. And of course, again, without going into too much detail, we also get log normal distributions where there's a log relationship between variables. So sometimes when we're drawing charts, we don't draw a normal line, we draw one that takes the data, log normal data. And we will often find that data fits a log normal distribution better than it fits a normal straight line distribution. But these are all things that you would only really get into if you really applied your mind to doing statistical analysis of your data. And again, there are tools now that will do it for you, increasingly. And we'll look at some of those tools when we look at what's currently coming out of the AR field. Okay, we know we can use histograms to depict data. And then we can use inferential statistics where we draw conclusions about a population based on a sample. And the concepts that we're dealing with are firstly hypothesis testing, secondly confidence intervals, and thirdly regression analysis. So for example, if we took a sample of students from the business school and measured all their heights and then measured the heights of the wider student population, assuming that they were happy to give you their heights, then we can make comparisons and see whether or not our students are typically the same height profile as the bigger sample. And we can also look and say the probability that we will have another Ibn Etzebeth who's 6'8" in one of our classes is on the low side because he's a freak of nature. He's one of those outliers. So we wouldn't expect to find too many Ibn Etzebeths as a member of one of our classes, or probably we wouldn't. Although there are a couple of others that are almost as tall. But again, we would look, and the interesting thing is, of course, that if you look at rugby players, if you're interested in rugby, of course, and maybe you're interested in another sport, but if you look at the average size and weight of rugby players a decade ago, it's changed dramatically. They are much bigger and taller than they used to be. And in fact, you can be a very good rugby player today and not get into any major team because of your size. So there have been a couple of very good South African rugby players that don't make it because they are not the right size. Even at school level, schools are starting to say, sorry, you're too small to be the scrum half, or you're too small to be a lock or a fullback or whatever else. So nowadays, there are all sorts of other criteria for getting into sports teams. Okay. Obviously, a hypothesis testing, we have a null hypothesis and an alternative hypothesis, and we check to see what whether our hypothesis is valid or not. And it's quite a complex area, which, to be quite honest with you, I never really applied my mind to in too much depth. But essentially, scientific research is trying to prove that you're wrong. Essentially, that's what scientists try and do. Prove, they come up with, say, this, and then they say, well, can we prove it to be wrong? And if we can't prove it to be wrong, then on the face of it, it could be right. But it's not a categorical. And so whenever any scientific research is done, immediately one group comes up with a hypothesis, other groups set about trying to destroy it. Yes. So science is a fairly dog-eat-dog kind of process. And it's quite important because if we look at the kind of things that we used to believe and what we believe now in many fields, including management, we will find that the original hypothesis was not particularly helpful. Things like learning styles and so on are now contested. Things like left and right brain thinking nowadays are quite heavily contested. in terms of whether they really are true or not. So we've got to be aware that over time, new work or new research and new testing comes up with different answers. Okay, so that's just an example where you can look at the mean exam score of a class against the college mean score, and the prof gave an example where you can look at the score by facilitator or lecturer, assessor, whatever, and see what the results are like. We know that they have some validity, that we can use them, and again, we can do it the hard way using Excel, like in the old days where you had all these functions, or we can feed it to one of these AI products and it'll do it for you. So you don't need to, you can give it the data and say, please work out the mean, the mode, the median, do me a whisker diagram, give me a standard deviation, and is this a normal distribution, etc. Okay. Okay, so they again talk about confidence intervals and regression analysis. This is just an extension of it. Estimating the range of values for a population parameter. So average heights, for example. Regression analysis, examining the relationship between variables to see how they fit together. Assessing the relationship between sales revenue and advertising expenditure. So that would be a fairly standard one. If we are spending money advertising on for different products, what relationship is there between the amount we spend on advertising product A, product B, product C, and the sales that we make of those products? We can do similar things, obviously, with student populations. For example, if you had a group of students that were educationally disadvantaged and you gave some of them additional support, then you could look at the end of a period of time to see whether it had made a difference. So at one stage, I ran a program for educationally disadvantaged students at UKZN, and we were able, not particularly me, but as a team, we were able to get them a BCom in 4 years instead of 3, at the same level of performance as those students that were not disadvantaged. So then we would say, well, the funders, who were people like the British Council and Mondi and Anglo and all sorts of other big name companies, they were happy because they could, A, show that their CSI expenditure was being used well, but equally they were getting graduates from educationally disadvantaged backgrounds. So we can slice and dice the data to see whether it supports, did the program make any difference? And fortunately for us, it did. Okay, so again, this is the kind of thing where we can do some analysis of cause and effect. We do this, what's the outcome? And we can then look to see whether the outcome is worth the effort or the finance, as the case may be. Okay, 11:33. Can I suggest we just take a quick 5-minute break? I feel in need of one. Can we do that? Make it a 5-minute stretch, comfort, non-smoke, whatever. No use of any electronic smoking devices. Just take a quick stretch, colleagues.